I never owned a dog, not even a bird. So when I, Daniel Keller, pulled a certified letter from my mailbox that claimed I owed $1,500 in HOA fines for violating pet noise ordinances, I thought it had to be some cruel joke. But it wasn't. Just 2 weeks earlier, I had moved into my new home in a quiet, picture-perfect neighborhood in northern France. The place looked like it belonged on a postcard. Fresh country air, neatly trimmed hedges, cobbled stone walkways. It was everything I had worked and saved for. I came here searching for peace. What I got instead was Karen Mula. She lived directly across the street, 55 years old, ice blonde bob, pastel cardigans, a jaw that always looked clenched, as if smiling had been outlawed in her home. Karen was on the HOA board, and on my very first day, she made sure to welcome me by declaring herself the watchdog of the community. At first, it was little things. "Your trash bin placement is too close to the curb, Mr. Keller," she said, squinting like she was examining a crime scene. Another time, "You didn't mow the corner behind the shed properly." I smiled politely, nodded, and kept to myself. But then, it escalated. One morning, as I watered the roses in my front yard, Karen marched over. "I've heard your dog barking late at night. It's disruptive." I blinked at her. "I don't have a dog." Her lips curled into a smile that wasn't a smile at all. "Then something in your backyard has a very loud bark." I brushed it off. Surely she had mistaken my home for someone else's. But that same week, a notice showed up in my mailbox. HOA violation. Noise complaint. Aggressive barking dog. I immediately called the HOA office. I explained that I lived alone, no pets, nothing. They told me I'd need to provide security footage to prove it. So I installed cameras around my property, front and back. A few days later, Karen reappeared, smug as ever, phone in hand. "Caught the mud again. 11:22 p.m. sharp. I'm filing another report." I looked at her shaky, grainy video. It was dark. The barking sounded distant. It could have been anywhere. It could have even been audio from YouTube. But then came the real shock. An actual lawsuit. The envelope trembled in my hands as I read it. Plaintiff, Karen Mula. Defendant, Daniel Keller. Allegation, repeated violation of HOA pet regulations. I stood frozen, gripping those papers, sued over a dog I didn't even own. And right then I knew this wasn't about a dog, this was about control. And Karen wasn't done with me yet. 3 days later, a knock rattled my door. Firm, rhythmic, official. When I opened it, a tall police officer stood on my porch, notepad in hand, badge number gleaming, sunglasses resting on his head. "Good afternoon. Officer Louis Mercier. Are you Mr. Daniel Keller?" "I am," I replied, though I already knew exactly who was behind this. "We've received a complaint. Reports of an aggressive dog on this property. Barking late at night. Allegedly. Threatened a child yesterday." I let out a sharp, humorless laugh. "That's impossible. I don't even own a dog. Never have." The officer tilted his head, peering into my hallway. "Mind if I take a look?" "Not at all," I said, stepping aside. "I've got nothing to hide." He inspected everything. Living room, kitchen, backyard, even the shed. No dog bowls, no leash, no hidden mutt waiting to bark on command. Just my quiet home and lavender plants swaying gently in the breeze. After 10 minutes, Officer Mercier scratched his head. "Honestly, you're clean. There's no sign of any animal here, but I had to check. This wasn't just a phone call. The report came with pictures, timestamps, even a written statement." My stomach twisted. "Karen." "Again." He handed me a copy of the report. It listed several barking incidents all at night and claimed I hid the dog during daylight hours. I showed him my own evidence. Security camera footage covering the entire week. Not a single bark. Just wind, streetlights, and the occasional bird song. "Mind if I leave this on record?" the officer asked. Please do. As he walked back to his cruiser, I glanced across the street. And there she was, Karen Mula, standing. In her doorway, arms folded, lips tight, eyes locked on me like a hawk guarding her so-called kingdom. I couldn't take it anymore. I crossed the street. Karen, I said calmly, you know I don't have a dog. She didn't flinch. Just because you say there's no dog doesn't mean I don't hear it. Why are you doing this? I asked. I'm protecting the neighborhood. That's what the HOA is for. No, you're abusing it. Her eyes narrowed, voice sharp. Some people don't belong here, Mr. Keller. Some people think they're above the rules. Her words landed heavier than she knew. This wasn't just about noise complaints anymore. There was something personal in her tone. Something darker. I turned and walked away, but inside me, something snapped. This wasn't just a nuisance. It was targeted harassment. And I wasn't going to play the quiet neighbor anymore. The next day, I sat at my desk, eyes bloodshot, scrubbing through hours of security footage. I wasn't giving up, not until I had proof that Karen was lying. Night after night, I combed through recordings. And then, just before midnight on the fifth night, I found it. 12:22 p.m., the same time Karen claimed she'd heard the barking. I turned the volume up. There it was, barking, but not from my yard. It was faint, distant. After adjusting the audio levels, it became clear. The barking was coming from behind my property, from the Jankowskis' yard. My sweet elderly Polish neighbors in their late 60s. The Jankowskis owned a large German shepherd named Bartek. Big dog, deep bark, loud as thunder, but completely harmless. The very next morning, I marched over to their house. Ava Jankowski opened the door, greeting me with her warm smile. Daniel, is everything all right? Do you mind if I ask? Has Bartek been barking late at night? She sighed. Only when raccoons crawl across the tree behind the fence. You must have heard him, I nodded. I need a huge favor, and I laid it all out. Karen's fake complaints, the police visit, even the lawsuit. Ava's face fell. You're being harassed, she said, visibly upset. Of course we'll help. She and her husband, Marek, handed me access to their Ring doorbell and backyard camera footage, and sure enough, it lined up perfectly with mine. Every single bark Karen had reported, 11:22 p.m. sharp, came from Bartek, and always from their yard. I gathered everything. My security footage, the Jankowskis' video, their signed statement, even a map marking exactly where the barking came from. I titled the file, Evidence Package, False Allegations by HOA Board Member Karen Miller. Then I sent it straight to the HOA board. 2 days later, I got the response. We've reviewed your claim. All enforcement actions are halted immediately. We are launching an audit into Ms. Miller's conduct. Finally. But Karen must have caught wind of it because that evening, she showed up at my door. Not smug this time. Just cold. You're making a mistake, she said flatly, not even waiting for a greeting. I'm correcting yours, I replied. You think this will help you? She snapped. You think people will side with you over me? They already are. She stepped, closer, lowering her voice. You don't belong here. People like you stir trouble. And there it was again, that venom behind her words, that need for control. Except this time, I wasn't just defending myself. I had a reason to dig deeper, so I did. I filed for public access to the HOA violation logs and board meeting minutes from the last 2 years. It took some emails and a little persistence, but I got them. Night after night, I sat in my study, armed with coffee, highlighters, and growing rage, combing through every line, and then I found them. 3 glaring violations, all tied to one. Name, Karen Miller. Violation 1, non-compliant mailbox. She'd installed one without the approved model. Never reported. Violation 2, unauthorized patio expansion. 2 extra meters of paved space complete with a roofed awning. No permit, no board approval, not a word recorded. Violation 3. An illegal second water line installed to keep her private garden lush, tapping straight into the community system. Never disclosed. Each of these should have triggered fines or forced corrections, but Karen's name never appeared once in enforcement records. Meanwhile, she had filed over a dozen petty violations against other neighbors. One woman had even been fined for wind chimes. Karen wasn't just nosy. She was corrupt. She was shielding herself while weaponizing the HOA against everyone else. And I wasn't about to let her keep getting away with it. I printed everything. Photos, blueprints, board minutes, the Jankowski statement, my footage, and I carried it all with me to the next HOA board meeting. The room was full. Neighbors sat quietly, watching. At the end of the long table sat Karen, still clinging to her frozen composure, surrounded by the very people she once ruled over. When it was my turn to speak, I stepped forward, steady and calm. My name is Daniel Keller. I've been falsely accused, harassed, and threatened with legal action over a dog I never owned. And while I've been forced to defend myself, one of your board members has been abusing her position to target innocent homeowners. Gasps rippled through the room as I placed the folder on the table and opened it. Page after page, photo after photo, proof stacked high. One board member, Adele Fournier, studied the documents closely. She looked straight at Karen. Karen, is any of this true? Karen's jaw tightened. This is ridiculous. He's retaliating because... No, Adele cut her off. This is a breach of ethics. By the end of that meeting, the decision was made. Karen was suspended pending full investigation. My fines were erased, the lawsuit withdrawn. But deep down, I knew. Karen wasn't finished. 1 week later, another knock came at my door. I hesitated, half expecting an apology, or maybe a flyer from some neighborhood kid. Instead, standing before me was a tall man in a dark green uniform. Animal Control? Inspector Hugo Beret? Animal Welfare Division? He introduced himself politely. We received a report of animal neglect at this address. Anonymous, but marked urgent. I blinked. You've got the wrong house. I don't even own a pet. He checked his clipboard. The report claims you're hiding a large dog in inhumane conditions. No food, no shelter, signs of aggression. I nearly laughed. This again? He gave me a tired look. Mind if I check? Be my guest. I walked him through the same tour I had given Officer Mercier weeks earlier. Living room, shed, backyard, no bowls, no leash, no dog, just grass, lavender, and a couple of garden chairs. He nodded, scribbling into his notes. This looks like a retaliatory report. It'll be flagged. We've had 3 similar false reports in this neighborhood this month. You're not the only one. As he left, I glanced across the street, and sure enough, there she was. Karen, barely visible behind her lace curtains, watching me. But this time it wasn't smugness, it was cowardice. That evening, I forwarded the incident report to the HOA board. Their response was immediate, furious. Enough was enough. They convened an emergency vote. The very next morning, I received official notice. Karen Mueller was permanently removed from the HOA board. She was banned from filing complaints for 3 years. And she was placed under disciplinary review by the community. Justice, clean, final, but the cherry on top, a soft knock on my door that same evening. I opened it to find Ava and Marek Jankowski standing there, smiling, holding a gift basket filled with cheeses, crackers, local honey, and a tiny plush German shepherd toy. We just wanted to thank you, Ava said warmly, for standing up. Most people would have just moved away. I laughed, this time genuinely. Honestly, I thought about it, but someone had to call her bluff. We shared a few laughs, and as they left, Bartek barked twice from behind the fence, tail wagging happily. I turned and called out, smiling, "Good boy, Bartek," because in the end, The dog Karen invented never brought me down. The real dog helped uncover the truth.